Yes.
I put this here because I found your name in it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Did you
it.
write that?
I did, yeah.
When? How
Awesome.
long ago?
Like a week ago.
Oh, I thought maybe it was longer.
Thank
Cool,
you,
because there
Jacqueline.
was
I appreciate
something, oh, that one was here, but I was stuffing them with the program.
Thank you. Okay.
How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine mato bumanai, sherira bikanya. Hine mato bumanai, sherira bikanya. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day.
Shabbat Shalom and Happy Pride. I am Rabbi George Altshuler. I use he, him pronouns. I am joined by our cantorial soloist for tonight, Melita Silberstein, who uses she, her pronouns, and our musical director, Jonathan Dimmick, who uses he, him pronouns. We come to services tonight, as we do most Shabbats, with many different and even conflicting emotions. Tonight, we celebrate. We celebrate those of us who identify as LGBTQ+ during San Francisco's Pride Weekend. Throughout the service, we'll hear from members of our synagogue who belong to the LGBTQ+ community, and we'll feature music by Jewish LGBTQ+ composers. We also come into this Pride Shabbat clear-eyed about how LGBTQ+ people around the country are being persecuted. And we commemorate the one-year anniversary of the Supreme Court decision to overturn a national right to abortion. I like to say that wherever you're at, wherever you're sitting tonight, we have a prayer for you in this prayer book. And I really believe that to be true. And I also believe that there can be a special power in saying prayers that don't match up immediately with the primary emotion you're feeling. So if you can, allow the prayers to move you to new places. So as we get started, I invite you to turn to someone near you and wish them a Shabbat Shalom. Our custom is to begin with announcements, so I invite you to consult the announcements flyer here, and I'll just highlight a few things. First, special thank you to Sophia for sponsoring our oneg tonight in honor of Torah study, so that's really special. Thank you, Sophia. Tomorrow morning at 9:15 a.m., we have a momentous occasion for Shearith Israel, which is that Torah study is returning to in-person. So we're really excited. I will be here in person at 9:15 a.m. to lead Torah study. There is, of course, also still a Zoom option, so you're welcome to Zoom in, but we encourage you, if you're able to come in person. We have our Pride Parade celebration coming up on Sunday at 10 a.m. You can register for that on our website. We also have a guided Hills of Eternity and Home of Peace tour coming up on June 25th, and I am told that it actually starts at 10:30 a.m., not 11 a.m. So I encourage you to attend that. Or 1 p.m., thank you. Or 1 p.m. So 10:30 a.m. or 1 p.m., thank you very much. And I want to announce an event that I am especially excited about, which is a Paul Simon listening party and discussion. Paul Simon came out with this incredible album called 7 Psalms that is just this incredible composition, and it is incredible music. It's also incredibly Jewish. So we're going to listen to the 30-minute album and then discuss it. I'm really excited about that. There is a lot more going on, so I encourage you to check out the flyer and to check out our website. I would now like to invite up Mike Feldman from our board to offer some words of welcome.
Shabbat Shalom. My name is Mike Feldman, and on behalf of both the Board of Trustees and the Hills of Eternity Board, I'd like to welcome everyone to the special Shabbat service tonight. I'm going to have some awesome music and nice chance to participate in the community. So thank you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much. We're going to have time for more simchas, more joyous events later in our service. But I'd like to ask, is there anybody in our kahal, in our community now, who is celebrating a simcha, a joyous event, and would like to light the Shabbat candles for us? Is there anybody here feeling moved to do so? Okay. I guess not. Well, I will light the Shabbat candles then. This is my first time doing this. Oh, Ollie, please. Yeah, Ollie. Wonderful.
My exciting simcha for today is that this week was the first week of teaching with the students at my summer teaching job. So that was really exciting to teach the children.
Yeah, definitely. Press down and then pull like a trigger. Let me try.
You're thinking for a physics major, I could do this.
Let's do it together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom and Mazel Tov on starting teaching. That's awesome. So I would now like to invite up our first person to reflect on Pride Shabbat, who is my wife, Kate Bass, and I'm really excited to hear what she has to say.
Shabbat Shalom. This is Sella, also. So I'm so excited to be here for Pride Shabbat. And when George invited me to be a part of the group of people who are going to be sharing about what this means to us, my first thought was to my parents, Georgie and Vicky, and to my stepmother, Sheris, who grew up gay in the South in the 50s and 60s in the Baptist church. And for them, religion had been incredibly alienating. It had meant that the South and their families often felt unsafe. And it's pretty incredible to be standing here with their granddaughter in a place of faith. As a second-generation queer person myself, that joy is not lost on me. But I also just wanted to share maybe more broadly what Pride has meant to me over the 34 years that I have been celebrating it, which, like Sella, I was a baby for my first Pride, and a little bit about why I think Shabbat can help us deepen our experience of Pride. So for me, Pride is all about just complete and unrestrained joy. Like, Pride is a time where we are beyond ourselves happy with who we are. It's an act of self-love. It's an act of self-proclamation. And long before those words, I think, became popular or entered popular culture, it's a time where we are just wildly unique and confident showing up in all of our uniqueness, but also feel in that uniqueness and in our boldness, I think, a real sense of connection to each other that is so beautiful. So it's joyful, and it's joyful, I think, because of and despite the losses that we have experienced and that we continue to experience. And that is a really complicated form of joy that is also really hard work. And that, to me, also feels very, very Jewish. And I think about a Kabbalat Shabbat service and the way that we'll say the Mourner's Kaddish tonight, and I will think about my late stepmother who died before she could marry my mother in this country, and I'll think about my friend Renee who lost his life in the struggle for LGBT rights in El Salvador, and I'll think about Black trans women who were losing at absolutely shocking rates. And we'll sing Mi Chamocha, and we'll clap our hands at Leha Dodi, and I'll think about the gift that my stepmother was to my life. And how beautiful it is to see my queer friends have kids, and how gorgeous it is to share Pride with not a lot of fear with my daughter. And so tonight, in exploring the whole spectrum of emotions, which we do, I think we are practicing mourning our losses and naming them, and also feeling joy alongside them. And I hope that in doing that tonight, we can reflect and open ourselves up and connect and give ourselves the space for the joy and the huge smiles and the shouts of exuberance that we will have over the next 2 days. So Shabbat Shalom and Happy Pride.
Thanks, babe. We continue on page 13.
Shema
continue to welcome in the Shabbat spirit with Lachado D, which can be found on page 20. We will sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9, and it is customary to rise on the 9th verse and to welcome in the Sabbath spirit. Page 20. We remain standing if we are able and continue with the call to prayer, the Barhu on page 28.
Sing along if you know it. La la la, la 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 la, la la la.
Alternative reading for Ahavat Olam from James A. Gee. How can it be that a stone, a plant, a star can take on the burden of being? And how is it that a child can take on the burden of breathing? And how, through so long a continuation and accumulation of the burden of each moment, one on another, does any creature bear to exist and not break utterly to fragments of nothing? These are matters too dreadful and fortitudes too gigantic to meditate long and not forever worship. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Ba'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Ba'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please be seated. We continue together on page 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha. Ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom alevavecha. Veshinatam levanecha vedibarta bam beshiftecha bevetecha uvlechtecha vaderech ushokbecha uvkumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha vehayu letotafot beinenecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai vihitem kiddoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiyot lachem lelohim Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, amen. It is now my pleasure to invite up Joseph Amster and Rick Shelton to offer some words.
So what does Shabbat pride mean to me? More than anything, it means that I was able to stand here with my husband on this bima in front of the Torah 8 years ago and get married legally. That meant the world. But what brought us here is different for both of us, of course, but I was raised in a very different place than San Francisco. I was raised in Orange County in the 1960s. Not a great place to be Jewish, not a great place to have liberal parents. And my parents were not particularly observant. Actually, they were not observant at all. So I really didn't get raised with too much other than the cultural part of Judaism. And because I was probably viewed as a heathen by a lot of my neighbors. I got hauled to their churches on Sunday, and they attempted to convert me and all that. Later on, I would become an LGBT activist in Orange County, and had a fair amount of hostility toward organized religion because I saw it as an instrument of oppression, because that has how it always been to me and my community. And then one day I was working for a magazine up in West Hollywood and had an opportunity to interview one of the first lesbian rabbis, Rabbi Denise Egger, who just retired last week from after 30 years at Congregation Kol Ami. And it was like a lightning bolt hit me. And I walked into a Friday night service and I felt at home in a religious institution for the first time. And that just made a huge difference in my life. Bar mitzvahed at 47 with a bunch of other LGBT people. There were about 7 of us. But most of all, what pride means to me, and what we sometimes forget what pride actually signifies, was the day that LGBT people stood up and came out of the darkness to the light and said, we're not going to take it anymore. We're going to be proud of who we are, and we're going to find our promised land. Does that sound familiar?
Thank you. So, there's an old Yiddish saying that goes, if I can think straight, pardon the phrase, but it starts off, Halten Shabbos is geringer auf machen Shabbos. In other words, it's easy to observe Sabbath, but it's hard to make it. So, there are many ways to observe Shabbat. I mean, there are more ways to observe Shabbat than Ruth Auerbach has recipes for challah. But I'm a survivor of heterosexual parents, and I grew up looking back 70 years ago, thinking it was a very, very different world. Shock treatment was offered, all of that sort of thing, because as a good parent, you wanted to cure your child. And I was that child. I didn't fit. So I've made my way. 70 years, Joseph and I have found our bubble in San Francisco. But I'm reminded of how many people at this time of the year and every year do not have the rights, do not have a voice, cannot be seen. We think of places like Jamaica, or maybe places like Uganda, Kuwait, Qatar, Iran, Nigeria, among the native tribes here in the United States. It's all around us, people. We are fortunate in San Francisco. But this is about standing up and fighting back, and it's a reminder. We can celebrate our victories, but for the younger people, it concerns me that the fight goes on, because we argue so much about which restroom to use, about what pronoun to use, and about drag queens reading stories to children. We have bigger issues. Here's a quarter, go buy a problem. Let's move on, and we've got to fight back. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. Happy Pride. I love you all. We have Chavra, we have community here, and we have to be strong. Thank you.
We continue to meditate on freedom with Micha Mocha, page 40. We meditate now on a sukkah of shalom, a shelter of peace, with Hashkivenu, page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'ha'amideinu shomreinu lechaim ufrosaleinu sukkah shelomecha ufrosaleinu sukkah shelomecha Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning light. Teach us to lead our right. Amen. 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 Amen.
I would now like to invite up Ali Feldman to share some words with us.
All right, I'm back up here. So when Rabbi Altshuler asked me if I wanted to write a short reflection on Pride Shabbat, I immediately accepted. It sounded like a great opportunity to rant about all the ways that LGBTQ plus identities have appeared in Judaism, even as far back as ancient times. Because I am a nerd and these are the things I love. I was ready to pull out all the facts and the texts that I had looked at over the years, but I had to pause and take a step back and realize that I wasn't thinking about what Pride Shabbat meant to me. After sitting down and reflecting and more reflecting, I came to the conclusion that Pride Shabbat to me means celebrating the intersection of my identity as a queer trans Jew. Growing up, I held both of these identities within myself, but never saw how they could be, well, connected. In the books I was reading and the shows I was watching, I never saw someone who was queer and trans and Jewish. More importantly, I never saw queerness celebrated in a Jewish context or my Jewishness celebrated in a queer context. I never saw how these two important parts of myself could fit together, and that was isolating. I didn't have really any peers to say, hey, this experience that I'm feeling, have you also felt this? Especially as someone who doesn't fall along the gender binary, I had a lot of trouble placing myself in a Jewish context where everything was so gendered, and that was really hard. It was only until I got to about the latter half of high school that I began to embrace the intersection of my queer identity and my Jewish identity. Through City, I got involved with Keshet, an organization working for the equality of LGBTQ plus Jews in Jewish life. By participating in Keshet programming, a crazy thing happened. I met other LGBTQ plus Jewish teens, and this was radical for me. This led to long talks with others like me about the history of LGBTQ plus Jews and how LGBTQ plus matters showed up in our text. And we talked about how our history was often complex, and some texts were affirming and some weren't, and that's okay. And for the first time, I met others like me, and that was one of the most radical experiences I ever had. And when the first time I went to the trans Shabbaton with other queer trans Jewish teens, I felt seen. I began to celebrate these parts of myself together. Instead of saying that I'm a queer trans person and I'm a Jew, I now say that I am a queer and trans Jew. And having that together is something that's so special to me. Pride Shabbat is another way of me celebrating the parts of myself that make up the whole part of me, especially in a world that isn't always accepting of that. And for me, it's a radical act to say, hey, this is me, and I'm proud of it. Shabbat Shalom.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ali. Our thoughts now turn to those in need of healing, whether that be healing of mind, body, and spirit. Misha Barak is on page 253.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
We pray this evening for Sarah Bat Shifra, Jim Blattner, Dr. Marion Bloomberg, Daniel Burton, Bob Fonarow, Stephen Gerbsman, Marcia Gruskin, William Kurian, Michelle Newberg, Philip Rosenberg, Agnes Rothblatt, Margaret Schneemann, Kristen Zietzer, and those whom we mention now.
Bless those in need of healing with refuah shema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
I would now like to invite up Corey Christopher Waxman to offer a pride reflection. Corey has been hard at work, and I believe Corey is out there in the hallway right now. Yeah. Kaylin, would you mind getting Corey? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Corey. I'm not going to use this. Can everyone hear me? Oh, the people at home. Okay. Hi, I'm Corey. Sorry, I'm setting up the ONEG as well right now. I'm the facilities manager here, and many of you know me. And when Rabbi Altshuler asked me if I wanted to speak at Pride Shabbat, of course I said yes, in this miraculous space in front of this congregation. And I think the prompt was, why is Pride Shabbat important to me? And honestly, the answer is, it's not really. But it's for a really wonderful reason. And that's because from the moment I set foot in that door downstairs, I have felt 100% accepted by this community. Always, I feel loved, I feel accepted. So Pride Shabbat for me, I feel like I don't need it. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, because there are a lot of people who do need it. In the same way that I feel accepted here, I also understand that I am privileged. I present as a white cis man, and that gives me privilege. And a lot of people might not have that, so they need Pride Shabbat. There are a lot of horrible things happening in our country right now, from book bans to trans athletes being banned, to gender-affirming care being restricted for adults. And this community needs to know that they belong and are accepted. So I would like to dedicate this Pride Shabbat to the trans community. Please tell them, if you know anyone, we accept you and we love you. We had Representative Zoe Zephyr last night from Montana speaking at an event that we had next door, and I pulled her aside. I hope I wasn't too rude, because she was very popular. And I wanted to tell her, Representative, I'm speaking on behalf of the clergy who wanted to make sure that we welcome you here, and we are glad you're here, and we stand with you. I'm dedicating Pride to that. Thank you for having it. Thank you for accepting me as a gay man and as a person whose Jewishness comes from their husband. I've always felt accepted here, and for that, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Shabbat Shalom.
We continue with prayer on page 46. Please rise if you are able. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Vekone Hakol Vezocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot Umevi Geula Livnei Vnehem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Vezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai Mechaye Hakol Atah Rav Lehoshia Morid Hatal Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed Mechaye Hakol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofeh Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem emunato lishenei afar michamocha ba'al givurot umido melach melech mimit umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman ata lechachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai mechaye hakol atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh ukdoshim bechol yom yehallelu chasela Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We continue praying silently either with the words of the prayer book or the words in our heart. When we're done praying, we may be seated. Shabbat Shalom and Happy Pride. Well, it's Pride Shabbat in progressive, cutting-edge San Francisco, and you've got me, a cisgender, straight, white guy giving the sermon. Brace yourselves. In all seriousness, I want to start with the most important thing. I want to speak directly to those of us who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning, intersex, asexual, or of any other marginalized sexual orientation or gender identity. You are invaluable to this synagogue. Our Torah teaches that humans were created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. You and every part of you are created in God's image. We as a community celebrate and affirm the identity of those of us who are LGBTQ+. As we celebrate our LGBTQ+ members, it is worth calling to mind one of the fundamental facts about diversity. We all benefit from diversity in our communities. I'll share personally that as a cis heterosexual man, I've learned a lot intellectually from queer thinkers, and I've also just had a lot of fun in LGBTQ+ spaces. It's hard not to have fun at a pride parade. What's not to love about painted faces, fairy wings, freedom, and dancing? Even if there is still progress to be made, it's worth celebrating how far we've come, especially locally, in affirming the rights of our LGBTQ+ community. Our surrounding communities have progressed a good deal since California Proposition 8 in 2008, in which a majority of Californians tragically voted in favor of a same-sex marriage ban. We've come a long way in terms of formal legal rights, and we've also come a long way culturally. I'm sad to share that transphobic and homophobic comments were unfortunately common in the hallways of my high school here in San Francisco. From what I hear, that has gotten a lot better. We've also come a long way nationally with the legalization of same-sex marriage in 2015. On Pride, we celebrate that. Still, the LGBTQ+ community is under attack around the country. According to the Human Rights Campaign in 2023, there have been more than 525 bills targeting LGBTQ+ people in state legislatures. Many of these bills have been a deliberate effort to attack trans people, and especially trans youth, for political gain. It's sickening that conservative political operatives made a calculated decision to go after trans kids in this way. It's hard to think of a more vulnerable group. As San Franciscans, it's important for our community to remain a bastion of celebration of LGBTQ+ identities. And I think our Torah portion, Korach, has something to teach us about how to do that. In our parashah, a man named Korach leads a rebellion against the leadership of Moses and Aaron. Moses defends himself against the rebels by saying that God will make God's presence known in order to demonstrate who the true leader should be. Then God opens the ground and it swallows up Korach and some of his people, and there's also a fire that eliminates some of his other followers. Commentators have puzzled over this story of Korach's rebellion for centuries. One common interpretation of why God favored Moses and Aaron over Korach is that Korach was motivated by his own ego, not by the genuine interests of the whole group. But more on that in Torah study tomorrow. This week, I encountered a new understanding of Korach's motivations, and I found it to be very moving. Rabbis Wendy Anselman and Mike Moskowitz draw on Kabbalistic sources to argue that Korach made the mistake of thinking that the world had already been fixed. Korach mistakenly believed that the people of Israel were ready for a utopian time when Moses and Aaron's leadership was no longer needed. This interpretation sees Korach as overly idealistic and unaware of the difficulties of the people Israel. I find this to be an especially useful lesson for our community. Even in San Francisco, even in Congregation Cherith Israel, we shouldn't think our work is done and that our communities are already perfect. Our local communities are far from fixed. Instead, it is important for all of us, wherever we are in our gender expression and sexual orientation journeys, to have a growth-oriented mindset when it comes to supporting and loving each other. This afternoon, I was in a training with Rabbi Eliana Kael of the Jewish LGBTQ plus organization Keshet, which was organized by the JCRC. Rabbi Kael said something wonderful that really made an impression on me. They said that they love it when they go and talk to middle schoolers, and middle schoolers teach them new approaches for being more inclusive. I thought that was such a lovely message coming from an LGBTQ trainer. We are all learning. In this spirit of learning, I have some suggestions, especially for those of us who don't identify as LGBTQ+. The first is to be mindful of pronouns. Even if you don't think there are any LGBTQ+ people in a gathering, it's good to introduce yourself with pronouns. This creates more space for others to introduce themselves with pronouns and helps to normalize this important practice. You may have noticed that we often have pronoun stickers at the door, and I encourage you to use them. Try not to make assumptions about other people's pronouns. If you do use the wrong pronouns to address someone, apologize sincerely, and then I've read that the advice is to move on. It's best not to over-explain your mistake or over-apologize. Over-apologizing can give someone who has already been marginalized the extra burden of having to comfort you. The next suggestion is to use your social capital to stand up for those who identify as LGBTQ+. When someone says something homophobic or transphobic, it's important to say something. Especially for those of us who are cisgender, meaning our gender identities are the same as that assigned to us at birth, we may not be used to the discomfort of pointing out oppression. Still, things will only get better for all of us if we who are less vulnerable carry some of the burden. When we do this, it's best to call people in by not attacking them personally and instead inviting them to ongoing learning. My final piece of advice, especially for those of us who haven't endured oppression because of our gender identity or sexual orientation, is to listen to LGBTQ+ people. If you've never been to our city's Pride Parade, I encourage you to go. More generally, it's important to listen to our LGBTQ+ community members to try to find out how to support them. I'm going to conclude my remarks tonight with a blessing for the LGBTQ+ members of our synagogue. It's adapted from a blessing by a Unitarian Universalist minister named Greta Jo Seedhole, offered at a Pride Parade in Michigan. You are sacred, an embodied spark of divine creativity moving through the world. May you glitter and glow, knowing that you are whole and loved, and there's nothing you or anyone else can do to change that. You are a blessing, whole, holy, loved, and living. This pride, may each of you sparkle like glitter, and may you be reminded of the divine spark within you, and may you shine brightest this day and every day. Happy Pride and Shabbat Shalom. When we join together, we have the opportunity to share simchas, joyous events with one another. So if you have a simcha, a joyous event that you would like to share with the community, I invite you to raise your hand, and I will come to you with a microphone.
Well, I have a joyous event that's about to happen. Next Friday, I'm going to cry. My daughter and my grandsons come for the first time in 4 years. So since the pandemic is over, they can actually come.
It's my birthday soon. It's on the 28th. I'm gonna turn 12. I also made this cool drawing.
My birthday is on Monday.
Oh, 2 birthdays in the family.
Next week, we'll have our 55th wedding anniversary. Pretty good, pretty good. Yeah.
For those who don't know, Nancy and I are birthday buddies. My birthday is also on Monday. I will be 30.
Yom Huledet Sameach. Anybody else? Okay. Well, for those simchas and those who are still enjoying in our hearts. Oh, there's more. Sophia.
I also want to thank, I was able to make my man's for Father's Day and say Happy Father's Day. I put my resentments aside and learned how to honor my mother and father.
I just want to thank Joseph and Ricky for inviting us to the Shabbat tonight.
Okay, anybody else? All right, so please rise and join us for Shechechianu. We remain standing and continue with Aleinu, which can be found on page 282.
It's a different version of Aleinu, the shortened version, and it's a call and response.
Please be seated. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every nation, race, sexual orientation, gender orientation, whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. If you are here observing Shiva, the first 7 days of mourning of a loved one, I invite you to rise and say the name of your loved one now. Please rise as your loved one's name is read out loud. We remember for Shloshim, Janet Bensu, Brittany Knooper, and Darina Noodleman. If you are here commemorating Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning a loved one, I invite you to rise and share the name of your loved one now. If you are here during Shana, the first year of mourning, I invite you to rise and share the name of your loved one now. We are commemorating the following yahrzeits. Please rise as your loved one's name is read out loud. Molly Klepper, Mersha Garber, Dr. Robert Jaffe, Wilma Karasik, Ronald Kletter, Ralph Lowenstein, Jean Eleanor Magnus Masel, Leon Mervis, Bernard Oetner, Morris Perlstein, Sylvia Price, Libby Silver, Ann M. Stern, Beatrice Terratute, Dr. Henry R. Werdiger, Joshua Wolkin, and those whom we mention now. Please rise. We rise together as a community and turn to page 294 for the Mourner's Kaddish. Yidkadal v'yidkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach yirute ve'amlich malchute, be'chayechon uvyomechon uvchay decho beit Yisrael, ba'gala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shmei rabba mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yidbarach v'yishtabach v'yidpa'ar v'yidromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudsha brichu. Le'ela minko birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Damiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru, amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to the whole world, to which we say, amen.
Amen.
as we conclude our service, I'd like to especially thank Kate, Joseph, Rick, Ollie, and Corey for your beautiful reflections. Thank you so much. It was really moving. Thank you. I'd also like to thank Melita. It was a joy to lead with you. Thank you very much. We turn to page 5 for Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu Zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit Ki hu yom tehila lemikra'e kodesh Zecher letziat Mitzrayim Ki vanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta Mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinhaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat l'chaim. It's my first time tasting the wonderful wine at Cherith Israel, so it's wonderful. We have a beautiful Ruth Auerbach challah. Thank you for getting it, Mike. I got to see a sneak peek of it on Facebook, as I'm sure many of you also did. We should unwrap it and show everyone. I got it. Incredible. They keep getting better and better. I don't understand. Like, how is it possible? Okay. Please join us for Hamotzi. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.